Some government secrets were buried for decades, not because they were rumors, not because they were conspiracy theories, but because they were real. When these files were finally declassified, parts of them were redacted. Some pages were missing entirely, and what remained was enough to change history. Tonight, we're looking at 5 declassified government files that were never meant to be seen. MKUltra. In 1953, during the height of the Cold War, the CIA launched a classified research program known as Project MKUltra. Its purpose was officially described as investigating methods of mind control and psychological manipulation. The concern at the time was that foreign governments might be developing techniques to control human behavior. The United States wanted to understand and potentially counter those methods. What followed remained hidden for decades. Under MKUltra, the CIA funded experiments at universities, hospitals, and research institutions across North America. Many of the subjects did not know they were participating. Some were given psychoactive substances, including LSD, without their informed consent. Others were subjected to sleep deprivation, hypnosis, and psychological stress testing. In 1973, as public scrutiny over intelligence agencies increased, CIA Director Richard Helms ordered many MKUltra records destroyed. Years later, surviving financial documents were uncovered by accident in a budget archive. The fragments that remained revealed a program far larger than the public had been told. Most of the original files were never recovered. What was erased may never be fully known. The Tuskegee Study. In 1932, the U.S. Public Health Service began a medical study in Tuskegee, Alabama. The stated goal was to observe the long-term progression of untreated syphilis. 600 African American men were enrolled in the study. Many were told they were receiving treatment for what doctors called bad blood, a vague local term used to describe various illnesses. In reality, the participants were not properly informed of the study's true purpose. Even after penicillin became the standard and effective treatment for syphilis in the 1940s, many of the men were not given the medication. The study continued for 40 years. It was not ended by the agency running it. It stopped only after a whistleblower exposed it to the press in 1972. The public reaction was immediate and severe. Congressional hearings followed. Lawsuits were filed. Ethical standards for medical research were permanently changed. Thousands of pages of documents were later released, confirming the extent of the deception. The file was closed, but the damage had already been done. COINTELPRO. In 1956, the FBI launched a covert program known as COINTELPRO, short for Counterintelligence Program. Its official objective was to monitor and disrupt groups considered politically subversive. Over the years, the program expanded. It targeted civil rights organizations, anti-war activists, political movements, and various public figures. The methods were not always limited to surveillance. Declassified documents later revealed tactics that included infiltration, psychological pressure, anonymous letters, misinformation campaigns, and efforts to create internal conflict within organizations. The program remained secret for nearly 2 decades. It was not publicly acknowledged until 1971, when activists broke into an FBI office in Pennsylvania and leaked classified documents to journalists. The files exposed the scale of domestic intelligence operations that many Americans had never suspected. Following investigations by Congress, COINTELPRO was officially discontinued, but the declassified documents raised lasting questions. How much surveillance is justified in the name of national security? And how much remains classified today? Operation Northwoods. In 1962, during heightened tensions between the United States and Cuba, a classified proposal known as Operation Northwoods was drafted by the U.S. Department of Defense. The document outlined a series of hypothetical scenarios designed to justify military intervention in Cuba. Among the proposals were staged incidents, fabricated evidence, and simulated attacks that could be blamed on the Cuban government. The plans were presented to Secretary of Defense Robert McNamara. They were ultimately rejected and never carried out. For decades, the document remained classified. It was only declassified in the late 1990s as part of a broader release of Cold War-era records. The file confirmed that the proposals had been formally written and circulated at high levels of government. Although never executed, the existence of the document raised difficult questions, not about what happened, but about what was seriously considered. The Pentagon Papers. In 1971, a classified Department of Defense study was leaked to the press. It became known as the Pentagon Papers. The study contained thousands of pages detailing U.S. political and military involvement in Vietnam from 1945 to 1967. What made the document significant was not battlefield strategy. It was the internal admissions. The files revealed that multiple administrations had privately expressed doubts about the war's progress, while publicly presenting a far more optimistic narrative. The documents were provided to journalists by military analyst Daniel Ellsberg. When major newspapers began publishing excerpts, the U.S. government attempted to block further release, citing national security concerns. The case quickly reached the Supreme Court. In a landmark decision, the court ruled in favor of the press. Publication continued. The Pentagon Papers did not expose a hidden experiment or covert operation. They exposed something more subtle. The difference between public statements and private assessments. Thousands of pages were eventually made available to the public, and the release reshaped the relationship between government secrecy and investigative journalism. Some documents are classified to protect strategy. Others remain classified to protect reputation. And sometimes, the difference is difficult to see. These files were eventually declassified. Some were heavily redacted. Some were partially destroyed. Some survived by accident. They are no longer secrets. But they were once. And history shows that governments do not classify documents without reason. The question is not whether secrets exist. They always have. The question is how many files remain sealed and what they contain. Because for every document released to the public, there are others still locked away